What if I told you that one of the absolute greatest stories ever written is only 12 pages long? Today, we are diving into an incredibly beautiful masterpiece by the legendary Russian author named Leo Tolstoy. You probably know him for massive, intimidating doorstopper novels like War and Peace or the classic Anna Karenina. However, his absolute best work might actually be a tiny, quiet short story known as Alyosha the Pot. Tolstoy wrote this brilliant little story in 1905 when he was already an old, established man. Interestingly, he never actually published it during his lifetime, and it only appeared in print after he died. So let's not wait anymore and dive right into the reading. Alyosha was the younger brother in his family, and everyone always just called him the little pot. His mother had once sent him with a pot of milk, and he stumbled and broke it. Ever since that unfortunate day, he was permanently nicknamed the Pot by everyone in his local village. Alyosha was a tiny, thin little fellow with ears just like wings and a very huge nose. The cruel children used to loudly call after him that his big nose looked like a dog. Alyosha went to the village school every day, but he was absolutely not very good at lessons. Besides his struggles with learning, there was honestly just so very little time for him to learn. His elder brother was in town working for a merchant, so Alyosha had to help his father. And from a very early age, when he was no more than 6, he worked hard in fields. He used to go out with the girls to watch the cows and sheep in the pasture, and also a little later he looked after all the heavy horses by day and also by the night. At 12 years of age, he had already begun to completely plow the fields and drive carts. The skill was definitely there inside the young boy, even though the physical strength was simply lacking. Despite his constant hardships, he was always cheerful, and whenever the children mocked him, he simply laughed. Sometimes he would be completely silent, and when his father scolded him, he would stand and listen. As soon as the angry scolding was finally over, he would quietly smile and go on working. Alyosha was 19 years old when his older brother was eventually taken away to serve as a soldier. So his poor father placed him with the busy merchant to work as a humble yard porter. He was given his brother's old boots, his father's old coat and cap, and taken to town. Alyosha was truly delighted with his new clothes, but the merchant was not impressed by his appearance. The merchant said he thought the father would bring a real man to work in his place. He scanned the young boy and asked what good this tiny person could possibly be to him. The father replied that he can do everything, including looking after the horses and driving the carts. He told the strict merchant that the boy looks rather thin, but he is tough and willing. The merchant agreed to see what they could do, so Alyosha remained working at the merchant's house. The family consisted of the merchant's wife, her old mother, a married son, and another educated son. There was also a young daughter who still went to the local school every single day there. They did not take to Alyosha at first because he was badly dressed and had no manners. However, they soon got used to him, and Alyosha worked even better than his older brother had. They sent him on errands, but he did everything quickly, going between tasks without ever actually stopping. Just as at home, absolutely all the hardest manual work was placed directly upon his tiny shoulders. The more he did around the busy house, the more heavy chores he was ultimately given daily. The mistress, the old mother, the son, the daughter, the clerk, and the cook all ordered him. They constantly sent him from one place to another, yelling out his name from morning till night. Alyosha ran everywhere, looked after everything, forgot nothing, found time for everything, and was always incredibly cheerful. His brother's old boots were soon worn out, and his master scolded him for going in tatters. The master ordered another pair to be bought for him in the market to cover his toes. Alyosha was delighted with his boots, but was angry with his feet when they ached at night. He was afraid his father would be annoyed to find the master had deducted boots from wages. In the cold winter, Alyosha used to get up before daybreak to chop wood and sweep yards. He would feed the cows and horses, light the stoves, clean the boots, and prepare the samovars. The clerk would get him to bring up the goods, or the cook made him knead bread. Then he was sent to town on various errands, like bringing the daughter home from her school. People would angrily ask him why he had been so long, but they made Alyosha do everything. They would just yell his name, and Alyosha rapidly ran here and there to fulfill their commands. He breakfasted in tiny snatches while he was working, and rarely managed to get his dinner timely. The busy cook used to scold him for being late, but she was actually sorry for him. She would secretly keep something hot for his dinner and supper because she cared about the boy. At holiday times, there was more work than ever, but Alyosha liked holidays because everybody gave tips. It was his very own money, which was special because Alyosha never set eyes on his wages. His angry father used to come and take his wages from the merchant and scold about boots. When he saved up enough money, he bought himself a red knitted jacket from the local market. He was so incredibly happy when he put it on that he could not close his mouth. Alyosha was not talkative at all, and when he spoke abruptly with his head turned. When told to do anything, he would say yes without the smallest hesitation and set to work. Alyosha did not know any prayer, as he had forgotten everything that his mother had taught him, but he prayed just the same every morning and evening, simply praying with hands by crossing himself. He lived like this for over a year, and then a most startling thing happened to him. He discovered that in addition to the relation of usefulness between people, there was a different relation. Instead of just being wanted to clean boots and harness horses, another human actually wanted to serve. Someone actually wanted to genuinely care for him and pet him, and suddenly Alyosha felt totally loved. He made this beautiful discovery through the kind cook Ustinya, who was young and worked extremely hard. He felt for the very first time in his life that he was necessary to another human. When his mother used to be sorry for him, he had honestly taken no notice of her. It had seemed completely natural to him, as though he were just feeling sorry for himself then. But here was Ustinya, a perfect stranger in this busy house, and she was genuinely sorry too. She would save him some hot porridge and sit watching him eat with her chin propped up. When he finally looked at her, she would begin to laugh out loud, and he laughed too. This was such a completely new and strange thing to him that it actually frightened young Alyosha. He feared that it might interfere with his daily work, but he was incredibly pleased by it. When he glanced at the trousers that Ustinya had mended for him, he would shake his head. He would often think of her while at work, occasionally exclaiming to himself, "What a fine girl." Ustinya used to help him whenever she possibly could, and he always made sure to happily assist. She told him all about her tragic life and exactly how she had sadly lost her parents. She explained how the merchant's cruel son had tried to take liberties with her and got rebuffed. She really liked to talk about her life, and Alyosha genuinely loved to sit and listen quietly. He had heard that peasants who worked in towns frequently got married to the local servant girls. On one occasion, she asked him if his parents intended marrying him off to a village girl. He said that he did not know, but he definitely did not want to marry village girls. She asked if he had taken a fancy to someone, and he replied he would marry her. She told him to get along and playfully slapped him on the back with a little towel. She teased him for finally finding his tongue, and he simply smiled and asked why he should. When his father came to town for his wages, the merchant's wife had heard about marriage plans. She completely disapproved of it, thinking a cook with a baby would be useless to their household. The merchant gave the old man his wages, and the father asked how his willing lad was. The merchant said he was doing fine, but he had taken some romantic nonsense into his head. He explained that he did not approve of married servants and would never allow them in-house. The angry father exclaimed that he never thought the fool would think of such a ridiculous thing. He told the merchant not to worry about the situation because he would very soon settle it. He went into the kitchen and sat down at the table, patiently waiting for his son Alyosha. Alyosha came back breathless from an errand, and his father immediately asked what nonsense was in the head. Alyosha claimed it was nothing, but his father said he would find him a decent wife later. He strictly forbade his son from ever marrying a town hussy like the lovely cook he found. His father talked and talked endlessly, while poor Alyosha just stood perfectly still and sighed out loud. When his father had quite finished, Alyosha just smiled submissively and told him he would drop it. When he was alone with Yasnaya, who had listened at the door, he said it could not be. He explained that his father was terribly angry and absolutely would not have the marriage at all. Yasnaya cried sadly into her apron, but Alyosha just shook his head and said they must obey. Later that evening, his mistress asked if he was going to give up that foolish marriage nonsense. Alyosha replied with a smile that he surely was, and then he suddenly burst into heavy tears. From that day, Alyosha went about his work as usual, no longer talking to Yasnaya about marriage. One day in Lent, and the clerk ordered him to climb up and clear heavy snow from roofs. Alyosha climbed onto the roof and swept away all the snow, raking out frozen lumps from gutters. Suddenly his foot slipped and he fell over, unfortunately landing right on a sharp piece of iron. Yasnaya came running up in a panic with the merchant's daughter, desperately asking if he was hurt. He claimed it was nothing, but he could not raise himself when he tried, and simply smiled. He was taken into the lodge, and the doctor arrived to examine him and ask about pain. He said he felt it everywhere, but only worried that his master would be annoyed by accidents. Alyosha lay in bed for 2 whole days, and on the 3rd day they sent for priests. Yasnaya asked if he was going to die, and he rapidly replied that of course he would. He thanked Yasnaya for being good to him, saying it was lucky they never got married anyway. He told her that his tragic death made it much better that they were never allowed marriage. When the priest finally arrived, Alyosha prayed silently with his hands and with his pure little heart. He believed that since it is good here when you obey, it will be incredibly good there. He spoke very little at the end, only saying he was thirsty and looking full of wonder. He lay in complete wonderment for a moment, then stretched himself out on the bed and died. Thank you for joining everyone for this beautiful piece of literature. I will see you again next week with another short story.